Okay, chapter 15 is about backup and recovery. So mainly Q database, well, it explains how to recover from failure or mistake. And to recover database mistake or some minor event by users, you have to use undo log. But if your database in failure, like media failed or system failure or network failure, then you must use redo log. And that is the main part of chapter 15, but from Oracle 11, I'm sorry, 9G, Oracle begin to support easier way to recover database, so-called flashback. So flashback is embedded utility in Oracle database, which makes recovery much more easier rather than just using undo and redo. But and it combines a flashback use the combination of redo and undo log. So we have to understand how undo and redo can be used for backup and recovery. Okay, so here's the objective of this chapter. You're going to learn backup and recovery, and you will identify check point and read log files and how to make archive log files and how to utilize that files. And to conduct recovery or backup, there's two modes. If so, depending on which mode your database in, you have some different options. So archive log mode supports more functions, if your database in this mode, you have more options. Without archive log mode, to recover your database, what it can do only is cold backup and cold recovery, which means your database needs to stop, and then you can recover. But archive log mode provides more options like hot or online backup and recovery. Okay, so and then you will learn how to perform database backup. So we are going to look at database utility, Oracle utility to perform database backup, which means recovery manager. RMAN, which is embedded application in Oracle database, will be the main part of performing database backup. Okay, so, and then just like a backup, using RMAN utility, which stands for recovery manager, you can perform database recovery from certain failures or different type of failures. Okay, so so you need to understand the recovery components first. First, RMAN is the main application or utility for performing backup and recovery. So to use RMAN, you have to run some commands, just like SQL Plus in your virtual machine. So RMAN is an independent application from SQL Developer. I'm sorry, SQL Plus. So it supports its own RMAN supports its own syntax. So way of using RMAN or recovery manager is slightly different from SQL, but still by issuing some statements, you can use recovery functions in SQL Plus as well. But RMAN is much more easier to use it. And RMAN support cold and hot backup. Okay, so, and checkpoint is a background process. And checkpoint process cooperate with DB-log writer so that every check of memory buffer cache is filled up by dblog writer, then checkpoint is automatically generated. And also users can create a checkpoint. So using checkpoint, you can roll back your database to certain timestamp, which is written a checkpoint. Okay, so right, anyway, checkpoint and dblog writer cooperate each other. And checkpoint is independent background process, but dblog writer can initiate or run checkpoint process. Okay, so the next one is these are used for instance recovery. Instance recovery is for mostly for mistakes by users or mistake by with minor issues. But if you have more serious issue, then you have to like media failure. This is very serious issue because database certain storage which contain database is not accessible. In this case, you have to that is called media failure. In this case, using redo log files, you have to perform recovery processes. So, and redo logs can be stored in local drive or secondary devices like tape recorder. So, well, there are too much dust here. This is the one of tape recorder, not recorder, tape. This is tape. So this using secondary devices like this, your database, especially redo log files, can be stored somewhere. Okay. And do you know what it is? Have you ever seen these kind of devices? This one. It's really heavy. It is external drive. So you can use a secondary storage to contain redo log files. Okay. And again, flash recovery utility enables you perform backup and recovery much more easier rather than simply using undo and redo log files. Okay, so next one is how control files are important and explains about control files. Basically, control file is meta file, so it contains everything about database, such as file location, database location, and read log and other log locations. And also, it contains internal information such as table space name, table names, and given allocated size of each table. And also, it contains information of privileges and grants. So, well, I can summarize. It contains control file, contains every meta information of your database. So that is really important because using the matching control file and read local file, you can perform recovery. In other words, with a control file, you cannot perform backup, you cannot perform recovery. So this is summary of content in control file. Database name, time creating database creation timestamp, name, location, table space name, and read log, and also it undo segments. So because control file is really important. So for the worst case, you need to make several copies, same copy, which contains same copy. And that is called multiplexing. So by multiplexing control files, you'll be more safer, will be safer than with single control file. Okay, so multiplexing, by running some statements, you can add control files, and also you can register as control file into certain control group. And the command and statements for creating control file is not here, but add. We can find control file information by going into SQL Developer and EM. And anyway, if you run Alto database, add control file and its location, and you can create a copy of control file. Okay, so so to perform, in summary, to perform backup and not to perform backup and recovery using redo log file, you must have at least one control file. So if you multiplex control files, you can store to storage where the database installed, like C or C drive, or because you can make a copy, you can store save the copies of control file into this kind of secondary devices. So actually accessing the files or data in these kind of secondary devices is much slower than regular regular storage types like hard drive or SSD. But that in terms of safety, the secondary device is more thorough than the other the regular devices, regular storage devices. But still, many of companies are using the secondary devices. Okay, so okay, checkpoint process, that is process. It controls amount time and instant recovery. Well, so we already learned some checkpoint in Info 3560. So when we learned rollback and commit, we touched a little bit of a checkpoint. So as users can create their own checkpoint, but checkpoint process or checkpoint here is a checkpoint for entire Oracle database. So Oracle database generates checkpoints when every read log switches, which means if read log file is fully occupied with certain read log, and in this case, Oracle database create new checkpoint and also new read log files are created. Okay, so it is mostly handled by Oracle database, especially Oracle the DB log writer in Oracle database. And still, if you have enough privileges as SysDBA, you can create checkpoint by yourself. The difference between checkpoint by regular users and checkpoint by Oracle database is checkpoints for by users only applies to their changes by the users. It has nothing with changes by the other users. But checkpoint by Oracle is applied to entire users or user groups. Okay, so again, checkpoint occurs automatically every time a read log file switches occurs, which means if once read log file full, then checkpoint is created. So Oracle database may have multiple checkpoints. Well, actually has multiple checkpoints. Okay, so in read log file records all changes of database. So have you ever taken, I think you guys have taken some computer languages in computer languages by IS department or computer science. Have you used some source management utility like SVN or CVS or GitHub? No? I haven't. Okay. So basically, the meaning of containing all changes is read log doesn't contain statement or actual data. It contains how data was modified. For instance, which column was modified and it describes previous value and the current value. So read log files is written by machine or Oracle. So actually it is not readable by users, but read log files must be understood by sysdba. So there is map utility in Oracle database named log miner. Log miner shows more structured log miner shows read log file in well formatted or formatted result. So well, again, read log file is not text file, it is binary file, but using log miner, you can see the log information in formatted result. So, but log miner is not activated by default. So to use log miner, you must run some statements. So you have to activate log miner. So if you run log miner, then this one, where is it? Here. Okay, so once log miner is activated, then log miner stores, analyze log information into vlog miner contents. So if you select SQL undo from vlog miner, then you can see how the data was modified. But actual data in log miner is not insert statements. But again, it wasn't activated. It is not activated by default. So you have to activate by running some statements like this: execute dbms log miner build and using certain folder. Okay, and then if you run all those statements, then finally you can look at what are stored in v underscore, well, there's no underscore, but you must type in underscore v dollar log miner contents. So let's go to view, but I don't think we can see anything from the table. By the way, log miner is explained as a utility by this textbook, but well, it could be a utility, but it is not. It is different from regular utility, computer utility. It is not computer utility. It is utility in Oracle database. So you can think that it like some certain functions or stored procedure or component in Oracle database. Okay, so to look at log miner, you need to log miner contents. You must activate, but what I want to do is looking at the view by after logging in sysdba. So let me go log in as sysdba, and log miner contents are stored in v underscore log miner. So let me go down until you can see v underscore dollar. Okay, so I can see v. Okay, so v underscore dollar. Log. Okay, here, yep. So log miner contents, let me select the view. Okay, its structure is like this. It has 52 columns and it contains actual content. Undo, where is it? Undo, redo and undo value, and timestamp. So let me go to data tab. Then it doesn't show anything, which means log miner is not activated yet. So if you want to activate log miner, then you have to issue statements. These statements execute dbms log miner set data space and add log file, and log. You need to add more log files so that log miners can analyze, read the log files. So why it is not activated by default? It seems like the log miner is very useful and very convenient application. The reason is simple. Log miner, based by default, is written in binary format, and it shouldn't be read by sysdba or users. So if you activate log miner, then log miner process will be activated. The log miner will read every log information, which means could be a system burden to Oracle system. So that is why, that is why log miner is not activated by default. Okay, so, and this is a simplified chart how log writer save log information into log files. So once it write first log, it may, so log writer doesn't do anything to the second log or third log. Okay. It is not, yeah, it is, I'm sorry, I was confused with DB log writer. It is log writer. So log writer handle multiple log files, read the log files. So the behind this chart is DB log writer should be located at maybe left hand side, and DB log writer initiate writing log by calling or revoking process of a log writer. Then it handles all steps or tasks related to generating and adding read log files into read information into read log files. So it doesn't matter how it doesn't regardless how many logo files you have, LogWriter will make sure these logo files has exact read log information. Okay, so and this LogWriter can handle increment read log information, but it is possible to handle by user sysdba. If you run, if you issue this kind of statements, then you can handle read log file by yourself. Okay, so read log contains every changes, which means its size, its read log size could be very big than the other files. Well, the most reason, most frequent reason that or why Oracle database hasn't Oracle database does not operate properly is because if you have not fully made read log files, Oracle database will add read information to read log files. So read log files, sometimes read log files are very, very big, like 50 or couple of hundred gigabytes. But normally server storage doesn't have enough space for such a big read log file. And the biggest log file that I have seen before is 222 gigabytes, which is really big, right? So which means the read log file is now well maintained or managed by sysdba. So because read log file takes all empty spaces where Oracle database installed, Oracle database cannot save any changes. So that is why Oracle database have failed. And this is very common issue, very common failure issue. So you have to, using some other storages or secondary device, you have to manage read log files effectively. Okay, so, and well, this chart shows how well we manage read log files. Basically, if you, it is recommended to have a couple of RAID disk, like disk A and disk B, or duplicated device disk. So, so this image shows you need to maintain same log files if you operate multiple devices or multiple disks or RAID disk. So you have to, well, it seems like legal, it is mentioned legal or illegal, that it is not a legal issue. It is recommended, it is not recommended. So if it is good to have multiple read log files at different disk or different storages. Otherwise, if certain log files have media failure issue like log2, so because each logos are sequentially managed, if certain log files failed, then even though have currently read log files, you cannot read log1 if you only manage single disk. So to avoid this case, even if there's a log2 has a media failure, by reading B log2, you can read entire log files. Okay, so multiplexing, control file, and read log files are very, very important to perform backup and recovery. Okay, so so you must have at least 2 read log groups for normal database operations. But unfortunately, we have one storage and for our Oracle database. So we can't have we can have multiplex read log files, but we cannot have the multiplexed read log files at 2 or more different disks or storages. We only have one storage, so we are actually not doing legal logging management. We are doing illegal logging management. So but multiplexing is that, multiplexing is making copy, but it is enough for control files, but it is not enough for read log files. You have to make a group. So even though certain log files failed, by grouping log files at 2 or multiple different storages, you're safe from media failure of log file. And to do that, you have to define read log group. So to define read log group, you can issue commands like this: alter database add log file group number. And in this parenthesis, you have to define what log files will be grouped. So in this case, if you want to make group with A log 1 and B log 1, what you can do is alter database add was A log 1 B log 1. So you can define group 1, read log group 1, and the read log group 1 has A log 1 and B log 1 as group member. So which means even if A log 1 failed by reading B log 1, you can read series of log files. Okay, so that is how to define group read log group. Okay. Well, even though it is possible to have single log, but it is not recommended. It's always recommended have second plane by so-called group defining grouping for read log files like this. Okay, so next topic is okay. So you have you have two scenarios. If your database in archival mode, or if your database is not archival mode, non-archive log mode, then you have several different options. So first thing is, what if your database is not archive log mode? In this case, what you can do is cold backup and cold recovery. Okay. So which means your database must be stopped or shut down to make a backup or make a dump. So that is why the backup mode is called cold, but hot or online. Cold backup is also called offline backup, and hot or online backup supports backup and recovery even though the database is in operation. So that mode is more complicated than cold backup and cold recovery, or a recovery. I'm sorry, offline recovery mode. So next thing is we have to understand different types of backups, from whole database to inconsistent backup. But I think it's better to stop class now. So I will resume from chapter of page 19 on this Thursday. And I want to remind you, you have quiz on this Thursday on chapter 14. So if you go to week 11, then you can see quiz 5, and you can take quiz 5 on this Thursday. All right, also quiz can be found in quiz and test as well. Quiz, okay, it is strange. Must be somewhere, but I cannot find. Okay. Well, anyway, quiz, by going into week 11 or quiz or test, I'm going to make sure where quiz was originally saved, and you can take the quiz on this Thursday. Question? Okay, guys, well then, please allow my excuse, and I will see you guys on Thursday.